Oop. Hi, everybody. I'm gonna wait until some people hop on here before I get started. My hair's a wreck. I'm just gonna wait a few minutes just until some people hop on here. Sharon! How is everybody tonight? Tonight's only going to be really a short session because I have things that I have to do, and I feel like we don't get a lot of replays with the really long video, so I might come back on Friday or even Thursday and finish up this discussion. Hello, Sharon. So we're talking about like investigation equipment and personal experiences, interpreting things that you are gathering, your data basically, and your things that you experience paranormal wise. It's really hot where everybody is tonight. I don't know what the temperature is outside right now. I haven't been out since earlier. I don't know if that's Chad or Melissa, but hello. Hello, hello. Chad. I'm just waiting for some people to kind of pop on. 93. Wow. That's hot. What's the temperature where you're at, Kimmy? I know Chad and Sharon are in Pennsylvania. Obviously, I'm in Maryland. I do not know what the temperature is here. I think the last time I looked, it was like 97. It's crazy. Crazy, crazy. But anyways, I'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, tonight I'm not going to do a real long one. Just a short session. I just today's part one. I, a little bit ago, had a discussion with another founder of a team, and he was kind of talking about, 104, wow. Kind of talking about, like, the information that we put out to the public, and how we word things. You know, it's really important to word it just the right way so that, you know, the general public, people who don't really know a lot about the paranormal, can kind of, they're not reading between the lines, you know, trying to get a wrong impression of what we're trying to share. So, you know, it's really easy to read a text off of Facebook and kind of get the really wrong impression about what you're trying to ask, or, you know, what you're trying to say. Hey, West by God. So, you know, this morning I had posted about battery drain. If people have had experiences where they're having a paranormal experience, say if they see a shadow figure, or maybe they heard a disembodied voice, and about that time, then their camera, for instance, the battery drains and shuts off. And then maybe, you know, you turn it back on and it's working fine. So you're kind of figuring like, oh, you know, maybe the spirit did it. I would never say directly that that is caused by a ghost or a spirit, or, you know, was a direct correlation to the paranormal activity. I mean, it's a coincidence. I don't really necessarily believe in coincidences, but, you know, it's something that I think brings me back to the topic that personal experiences are important. So it doesn't really matter if you sit down at the end of the day and you say that, you know, we had these personal experiences, but we didn't capture anything. I feel like if you do, and other people can back that up, and it validates, you know, a client or somebody else that maybe wasn't doing a paranormal investigation, you know, it validates that, they are just as important as the data that you're gathering. So, you know, if you don't capture that shadow figure on a camera, or you don't catch that disembodied voice on an audio recorder, it's just important to put down when you're, you know, finalizing an investigation that that actually did happen. I would say though, like, you know, when I'm reviewing and doing all of the data details at the end of a case, if everything is exclusively personal experiences, I'm probably going to tell a client, hey, we got to come back. Hey, Jeffrey, you know, we really have to do this again, and, you know, try to see if we can use those personal experiences that we had to capture data in the future. But I kind of wanted to talk about people actually using objectivity when they're interpreting the results of their equipment, of their personal experiences, and then taking, you know, the information that they're gathering objectively and going back and trying to recreate it. It doesn't really matter if, you know, it's something, you know, just a piece of equipment going off. You want to try to recreate the same situation again, maybe not in succession, but at a later point in time, to see if you get that same exact response. You know, there are a lot of chances that your equipment's going to give you a false positive. So just taking it right off the bat, you know, if a spirit says their name is Sarah, you want to try, you know, at some point to try to get a spirit or entity to reiterate that fact in a different way. Another example would be if, you know, a client tells you, hey, JC, if a client tells you that they have a door opens and closes, you don't want to automatically, I mean, obviously you don't want to really just tell them, well, that's not happening. You want to go back there and you want to say, okay, how could this possibly happen? Use critical thinking and use your investigative skills to try to get that to be recreated naturally without using any paranormal, you know, thought processes into it. I know we had a case where the door that constantly opened in a house, the client, you know, was sure every time stuff happens in the house, this door seems to open. Well, come to find out, the door didn't latch correctly and they didn't really notice it. So when the door didn't latch correctly, one of their dogs was actually able to push into the room, and they didn't think that the dog could do that. But then the dog would be back. Well, you know, some little dogs just move really fast and they didn't notice it. So we were able to recreate their experience and give them a reason for why it was happening. So it's imperative when you're doing paranormal investigation to actually find a real explanation, not just immediately say it's all paranormal. So going back to the, you know, is the camera, if you have a camera drain, is it really paranormal, or can you try to recreate that to see if it will happen again? We all know electronics malfunction. It's not just because paranormal circumstances. I will say that rechargeable batteries are very faulty. And I'm going to close this curtain because I think it's causing a little bit of weird light. I'm not sure. Let me close this one too. Bear with me for a second, guys. Hopefully it's not too dark. I have a whole method to this live thing that I've had to do. Anyways, so, you know, just because your equipment malfunctions, don't automatically assume it's paranormal. And that's kind of what I wanted to point out earlier when this gentleman had, you know, it's a wrong way to kind of put that out there to say, hey guys, have you had, you know, a paranormal experience and had your equipment drain? It's not to say that it's paranormal, but I want to know the stories. If you've had it happen to you, I want to know the details, because to me, in the details, sometimes you can find answers. You can find ways to recreate it. You can figure out how it actually happened. And, you know, onto that, you know, all of your equipment. One of the things that drives me crazy as, you know, an investigator, and I see other people out there, you know, working with these pieces of equipment, they don't even understand what the equipment does. They don't understand the the real science behind it, because, you know, these devices are created with science that we know. So they're created with science that we know, but we're trying to gather science that is not known. Things that are paranormal, they're not normal. So using equipment that is with science that we know, you should know how it works. You should know what the components are. You should know what the faults of the equipment are. And I really feel like, hey, Laurie, I feel like people need to educate themselves in the science behind whatever you do. Don't just go out there with, you know, a K2 meter and have, you know, all these people around you. Just remember, spatial awareness is key. If you are only paying attention to a K2 meter and you're not paying attention to the fact that the guy behind you has a two-way radio, he could be manipulating your K2 meter. So be aware, interpret your data with everything, and, you know, try to control your setting too. That's why doing these like big ghost hunts aren't always great, because you never know what somebody may have. And that's with any piece of equipment. Your audio recorders, everybody hears different things. I can hear, we're back to that same Laurel Yanny thing. Some people heard Laurel, some people heard Yanny, some other people didn't hear either of those. I heard Yammy. So just remember, everybody hears different things. So have a bunch of people listen to it and kind of give you an idea of what they think they're hearing, and, you know, go from there. Because you could listen to 2 hours of audio and not hear anything. Somebody else may listen to that 2 hours of audio and find 20 different things that they think is anomalous data. Everybody hears different frequencies, so remember that. When you have a team, or you're reviewing this stuff, have more than one person review it. It's a really good idea. With ITC, I love using a spirit box in moderation. I don't like sitting there for an hour and listening to a spirit box, because after a while you get led away from what you're actually trying to accomplish. You're getting all of this information in little tidbits, and, you know, after a while you're trying to grasp at things that you think you're getting, but you're really not. Because when you listen back to the audio, you definitely, oh, well, I heard the name William. Well, when you listen back to it, it's, you know, it's just a series of sounds that really don't sound like that. But at the time, that's what they sounded like. So you really have to be objective. And that piece of equipment, I say, use it a couple times before you actually use it on an investigation, to kind of get, you know, familiarized with what you possibly could be getting. ITC, like I said, is great, but it comes with, I think, a lot of false positives, a lot of things that really aren't paranormal, and it's not something talking to you. So you really have to be careful, and that's why some people do not agree with using ITC. They don't agree with using broken radios to try to communicate with spirits. It does not work in urban areas that have a lot of radio stations. You're going to get a lot of that noise. You're better off in areas that have a lot more static. And I don't really, you know, everybody's free to kind of comment on this, but I don't agree with the apps that do the ghost box type of communication. I don't really like that, because a lot of these things have databases, and, you know, if it is listening to what you're saying, it could throw in some of your communications. I mean, everybody says that you could be talking about a subject, and then all of a sudden Facebook has it up on there, and you're like, well, I didn't search for that. That's weird. I was talking about it the other day, and now Facebook has it up. So yeah, if your phone has permission to these applications to use, you know, the microphone while you're using that particular app, you never know what you might be getting. So remember that. The more technological we become with some of these paranormal equipments and apps, they really you kind of lose your knowledge about them because they're very technical. And if you aren't technical, you're not going to understand it. You're not going to know what you're dealing with, and you're not going to know what the false positives are. I feel like a lot of equipment these days doesn't actually tell you what the false positives are. They just say, this is how we say to use it, and it's for entertainment purposes only. I can't talk. Just remember that everything you get is clouded by your subjective, reasoning there. So really kind of be objective and try to interpret it carefully. Don't just jump on the train that, Colonel Mustard did it in the study. These static and frequency-based pieces of equipment. Chad, for example, is supposed to be helping us create a, I guess it's like a Boo Buddy. I'm not sure. Chad would probably have more information on this. But I have a stuffed dog, which I have no idea where he's at right now. He's in here somewhere. A stuffed dog he is going to change over so that it's kind of like, I guess, a REM pod function. I'm not sure. And we want to test this out and use everything that we can to try to figure out if other things influence. And then we've seen a lot of great videos of people using these things and actually getting good responses. To me, it would be great to have, a camera in a really great hotspot with the dog, equipment, and see if we can have it interact. I saw, was it Shane and Ryan with the BuzzFeed Unsolved? They used, I'm not sure what theirs was. I think it was a bear. And it actually went off when nobody was around. So I would love to try that and test that out. We are really not big equipment-based people. I don't like using a lot of equipment because I feel like we spend so much time so focused on it that we lose sight of what we're actually doing. That's what I thought it was, Chad, kind of like a REM pod. And I would like to get some REM pods. Billy, one of our members, has one, and it's yielded some interesting stuff. We actually had, I think it was a handheld REM pod or something like that. It flipped over when we were at the warehouse recently, so it was really cool. It wasn't that it was the equipment was used; it was actually physically moved from one spot to another. But again, like I said, always use, serious objectivity when you're observing these pieces of equipment and you're listening to that, the Ghost Box or PSB7 or PSB11. You have to just take it a grain of salt right at first, because you just don't know if what you're getting is really what you think you're getting. Don't be so into your investigation that you leave all your sense behind and you run away with a word or a name, and next thing you know, you're so confused. One of the ones that I don't know if people still use it or not, so let me know if they do. EM pumps. Now, I talked about our giant EM pump at the last the last live I did. I don't like them personally. We don't know enough studies to know if that much EMF actually could cause cancer or other health concerns. I know that it gives me a headache. It makes me sick to my stomach. So there's a lot of things, side effects from EMF fields. So using that piece of equipment to try to do research, to me, I don't think it's worth it, because the times that we did use it, we did not notice an increase in activity or, it bringing activity to places that there wasn't any. So EM pumps for me are something that I feel like people that know the possible hazards of that could do, but I don't feel it's a piece of equipment that should be a long-term used item. I just don't think it's. Oh yes, Denise, yes, when we turn on the one that we have, it immediately makes me sick. I taste like copper in my mouth, and I get headache right here at my temples. And it does after a while. It makes me sick to my stomach. So I don't like when they use that. We don't rarely ever use it. But it definitely, we did not notice an increase of anything. So we used it enough to kind of really make a good judgment of that. Photography. Now, people that know me know that I dabble in photography, and about 2 years ago, I started teaching myself a lot of the ins and outs. I bought a DSLR camera, and I decided I wanted to learn manual mode on the camera. So ever since then, honestly, once I learned how to do manual on my DSLR, I have not gone back. I love using the manual mode because it creates an artistic portrait. However, it has also taught me a lot of things about photography and pictures, and learning the different things that can cause a picture to go wrong. You know, if you take a picture and the shutter is open, you know, for a while, it's going to be blurred. The picture is going to be blurred. If you have anything moving, it's going to blur. Or if you move the camera. So just remember that, like with your phones, if you're taking a picture and you move it at all, and the camera is on an automatic, you know, it decides on its own what light settings it needs. And all of those settings are about light. Hi, Ruthie. So remember that when you're taking that picture, depending on what kind of lighting situation you have, it's going to cause some sort of anomaly, especially at night. I will be 100% honest. Nighttime pictures will distort in any way you can possibly think of, from the flash being reflected off of anything in front of it, bugs, moisture, dust, objects that have shiny surfaces. So, I mean, you know, it just could be a chair, or, you know, the side of a house, or a street post. You know, you never know what it could reflect off of. So just remember that when you take a picture, really understand what's around you, what light is coming from behind you, and how it reflects off of surfaces. Because when you add in that flash, you say, oh, well, that wasn't there when I was looking, you know, when I was just looking here, that wasn't there, but look, it's on my picture. Just remember that your picture is not what you see. The camera interprets things different than you do. So always remember every single surface, and take several pictures. Take a picture behind you. Don't move from your spot. Just turn, you know, right around. Take a picture behind you. Take a picture in front of you, and take several of them. And, you know, exactly, take several scenes. But I don't even use pictures anymore for paranormal purposes. I only use them for posterity. So when I go to a location, I take pictures of everything, just in case we hear something move. We can look back there and say, oh, well, this object was up on the counter, but now it's on the floor. So we know that something was moved, and we have pictures to prove that. We don't use it necessarily to say, you know, well, we captured a mist or whatnot. We like to use moving moving pictures to capture that, or audio, you know, for things of that purpose. We don't really like to use photography. It just doesn't tell the whole story, and it's hard to get the whole story into one picture. So be very objective when you look at a picture, and try not to get offended when you put it out there and somebody gives you an explanation. I definitely do feel like a lot of paranormal investigators that are seasoned kind of can be a little jerky when they, you know, respond to people asking about, yes, I'll get to that one in a second, JC. Doesn't it capture in a different type of light, your camera, stuff we cannot see? A camera is only really capturing, I mean, yeah, it can capture things that you can't see with the naked eye, but it's usually just because it's too small for our eyes to see. So cameras, when they capture, orbs are a great example. When you take a picture of something and you catch that round you know, blob in your picture. Just remember, we cannot tell you what that object looks like. It's too small, and you can't just, you know, reach out and grab it in the air and put it under a microscope. So all of these things, from your skin to dust particles, pollen, every little fine particulate has a different type of surface. It has a different colored surface, and it's going to react differently from that light hitting it. So your camera is only going to show you how it interprets that and how the light is reflected off of it. So when you see those round things, 9 times out of 10, all that it is just because of the surface of whatever it is. Sony even had a really great thing out years ago. I probably have the picture somewhere, explaining that, you know, digital cameras cannot, you know, they're not microscopes. All they do is just take the picture as it is. The great thing though is, as megapixels have gotten better and cameras just have gotten better, you don't see them as often. So it's kind of working itself out by the cameras just being better technologically. So JC was talking about manipulation. Anybody can do anything to a picture. You can go on YouTube and learn how to use Photoshop, learn how to use Lightroom, and or even a lot of these applications that are on phones these days. I mean, I can add an alien spaceship into any picture you want me to. So just remember that a lot of people can manipulate photography. And you know, I've had people send me like those Add a Ghost In apps, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I've seen this app before. I've used it myself, simply for, you know, obviously research purposes. But you cannot try to do that. You know, there's so much stuff out there that you can capture that is legitimate. You don't need to fake the stuff. You don't need to just create stuff out of nothing. So just remember, you know, when you see a picture, anybody can manipulate it. That's why I don't like photography. Yeah, Sharon, I'm sorry. Hey, Mary. So it's hard. I mean, I've been doing this for 10.5 years, and it's really hard to not be cynical. I'd have to say it's hard to not be cynical about a lot of stuff that you see. Yes, when I first started, we were like, what are these things in our camera? You know, 2000, I think it was 2007 when we first started taking pictures, and we didn't even have a team yet, but you know, we were interested in it, and we were orb people once upon a time. We aren't any longer. I have seen what I would say is a orb with the naked eye at Trans-Allegheny, and will I say it's paranormal? No, but it was very weird, and it made all the hair stand up on my body. But I can't, because I can't put it under a microscope. There are explanations in science that could explain it away, and I didn't have any other, you know, experiences other than seeing the light. I didn't see, you know, or hear any voices. I didn't hear footsteps. It was only a light in the hallway, and it just kind of disappeared on its own. So yes, Ruthie, pareidolia. I saw one recently. Somebody had shared a picture. It was a really old picture, and they were determined to say that there was a face on this one side of it, and you could tell that it was like a stacked rock wall, and then it was a plant, a big long leafy plant in front of this rock wall. And yeah, it did look like a person, but if you really examined it, you know, honestly, all those old pictures are so kind of weird looking that you can't really make a good determination of what it is, you know. But I could tell it was a plant. So I just, you know, and I don't even say anything. I just move on. You know, if people want to believe that, whatever. I'm not going to discourage them. But hey, Tony, it really does happen a lot. Pareidolia is just a chaotic data that you are finding a pattern in. And in most cases, they say that the most familiar thing when, you know, you start out is a face. So that's what people normally see. They see faces in these things. And it really, in a lot of cases, it isn't. And And don't get the mistaken belief that just because you see it, you believe that it is, even though you know that it's, you know, a tree. But no, it's definitely, I feel like this person is manifesting themselves in this tree. I'm not so sure of that. I'm not so sure of that. Okay, so what else are we? Temperature. I've told you guys before that we do baseline readings when we start our investigations. We do EMF readings throughout an entire location, and then we do a temperature reading. The EMF is mainly so that we know if there are any areas that have high EMF and could be the cause of any paranoia or hallucinations that somebody may have. So it could explain, you know, certain experiences people have in a certain room because it has high EMF. It's also good for us to know where we shouldn't put equipment, because high EMF could affect all of our equipment and then contaminate our data from that equipment. So we like to keep track of that. And in most cases, most homes are, you know, especially the newer ones, they're fine. It's usually about a 0.3 to a 0.4 Gauss, so it's not, you know, there's really nothing going on. We did do one location that aired it out, and that was incredible. We use a industrial grade EMF detector. We don't use a K2 meter for that purpose, or one of the Ghost Meter Pros. We actually use a digital readout electrician style EMF detector. Then we also do the, you know, temperature. We when we do these temperature readings, it is specifically to find where possibly there's drafts and things like that, so that we know when we're out there investigating, we already know that there's a draft that goes through a room. And in most cases, most places have some sort of draft that goes through. Hey, John. So, you know, it gives us that detail that while we're investigating, we are not mistakenly believing that that draft is actually a spirit changing the temperature in the room. So, oh yeah, you ready for Oddfellows? So, you know, we always try to get as much data as we can so that a lot of these experiences can be explained. You know, we're setting a precedent for our investigation so that later on we know what's causing it. We know that it's not paranormal, and we can recreate it. We can debunk it. I hate that word, but we can debunk it that it's paranormal. It's not. It's just a natural occurrence in that particular location. But like I said, I'm not doing a long session tonight. I want to revisit this topic. I don't know if I'll do it again this week or if I'll do next week, just carry it over. I would love to know other people's thoughts on, you know, these critical thinking about when you have a personal experience, about keeping track of the details and writing them down and then going back and attempting to find an explanation for it. About using your equipment and knowing what the equipment can do and what it's capable of, and the false positives. You know, this is a very big subject with paranormal investigators. We really try to advocate people understanding what everything does before you use it. It's not a good idea to take a piece of equipment out that you know, have no clue what, and you're trying to mess around with this in front of the client. A great case in point, we had a audio recorder that on our most recent private residence. I had checked the recorders the night before to make sure that the batteries were good. Everything was in working order. All of the equipment was set to the right settings. And when we got there and we set up, and I think Jim and Jeremy were setting up the recorders in the different areas, I went into the master bedroom where the one recorder was, and somehow, in some way, the fast playback option was on the Olympus recorder that was in there. Now, we've had these recorders since we started. I didn't even know it had a fast playback option on it. I didn't understand what that even was. But it took about 10-15 minutes, and we did a little research. Come to find out that the fast playback option on these recorders can only be turned on if there are files on the audio recorder. And there were no files on the recorder, and that option was not turned on when I checked the recorders the night before. So between the time that I put it back into the case for us to put it in the car to take it to the investigation, and me picking it up to start recording on it, somehow something had turned on the fast playback option, which really isn't possible since it didn't actually have any files on it. So we cannot find an explanation for that. I don't know if it's equipment malfunction, if that's even possible, but it was a very interesting circumstance, and we didn't even know how to turn it off. We actually had to record something, go in, turn it off, and then delete the recording that we had started. So, you know, we didn't have any clue about some of these finer, you know, points on the auto recorder. So there's another thing. When you go out and you're investigating, you got to know how your equipment works, because what if you only have like 20 minutes in an area? You know, some of these ghost hunts, you only have a certain amount of time in an area, so you don't want to be futzing around with your recorder. And now that I know how to turn that off and make sure that it's not on, I don't think it'll happen again, but still, it's something to know later on. Know how to set it up, know what it does, know what you're trying to accomplish with it. Anybody has any questions, comments, concerns? It was fascinating, Sharon. I was completely flummoxed about that one. I don't like equipment, and the ghost box puts me to sleep. I agree. The only electronic stuff I like to use are my recorder and flashlight. Love me some balls, though. Sharon. Jeremy, do you have your balls? Oh, I can't help but laugh at that one. Like the glow-in-the-dark balls. Yeah, we've had those things move from time to time. I mean, you really can't misinterpret a ball rolling across the floor. So sometimes simple is better. I mean, you obviously don't want to go into a location, you know, some client's place or a historical building and throw baby powder on the floor. So you have to come up with things that that could really give you could give you answers and could give you data, basically, that you can share with other people that would, you know, say, hey, this is what happened, and we definitely feel like there's something paranormal going on there. Now, obviously, there's always that one person that's going to discount everything that you find because they're skeptics. Most of them want to believe, they just really need to see something specific. So don't even worry about some of those skeptics. They just can't help it. I think it you know, builds character for any paranormal investigator team or group to have people question some of their stuff. And just remember, when you gather all of that information, all of the data, you know where things were, you know how the investigation went, you know where every person was, you know where the client was, where the dog was, whatever. You have all the information. You gathered all that stuff, you documented it, and you know without a doubt that nobody was there. The equipment didn't malfunction. It wasn't a false positive. The ball didn't get blown across the floor. You have all that data. You can back it up. And there's no doubt in your mind that that's what it was. It had to be paranormal. I think that's about it. Nobody had any questions or suggestions or thoughts or ideas. I'm going to cut it short tonight. I figure hopefully this really big burst of information will be helpful to somebody out there. And, you know, all these, there's tons of groups that start up constantly, and getting the correct information out there is always my goal. I have all of this stuff stored up in my head, and I feel like sharing it with people, you know, the trials and tribulations of being a founder and being a case manager of a paranormal team. It's, you know, it's great to share this information with everybody that needs it. and values it, basically. So I'm gonna pretty much end this. I will say I do have an announcement. I'm really excited. I got my Reiki level 1 certificate today. The Reiki attunement was incredibly wow. I have a major headache from it, so hopefully soon. Hey Steve, hopefully soon I'll have my Reiki 2, so we'll see. But anyways, guys, if you have questions, comments, thoughts, or topic suggestions, go ahead and post them in the comment section. I probably will do another one of these Thursday or Friday. It depends on what I've got going on this week. I've even thought about doing a live from like Antietam or Gettysburg, as long as it's not hot as Hades. Night, Eric. Thanks for watching. Because I know everybody loves all these historical places, and I feel like I'm in ground zero and I can share them even though you're only seeing it on a Facebook Live. It's great to be at some of these, you know, historical spots and give you the opportunity to see a little of that, especially those who can't go to Gettysburg or can't go to Antietam or some of these other places that are nearby. But anyways, I will let you go. Feel free to share this video and tell all your friends to come on Tuesdays at 7. I do this every week unless I have something going on. But I'm going to let you go with, I'm Rebecca Boyer. I'm the co-founder, case manager of Antietam Paranormal Society, and we are in Hagerstown, Maryland. We were founded in April of 2008, and I will talk to you all later. Bye!